Take radical responsibility. There is an axiom, ancient and inescapable. You are responsible for everything that happens to you, and everything you do, whether or not it is your fault. This is not a call to self-blame. It is far more profound and dignified than that. It is the assertion that the quality of your life, the state of your mind, the orientation of your actions, the trajectory of your future, is squarely and irrevocably in your hands. And the moment you fully realize that is the moment your life can begin to transform into something of structure and significance. Most people recoil from this idea. Why? Because it is terrifying. Radical responsibility strips you of excuses. It eliminates the false safety that blame provides. It cuts through the comforting narratives of victimhood. When you say, "I am responsible," you are not merely accepting what you chose, you are accepting how you responded to what you didn't choose. And that means you can no longer live as though your circumstances determine your destiny. You must instead accept the burden of shaping yourself to meet the world. Taking radical responsibility begins small. It begins in the microcosm of your daily choices. Did you make your bed this morning? Did you attend to your obligations even when you didn't feel like it? Did you speak honestly when it was uncomfortable? Did you acknowledge your mistakes instead of rationalizing them? These are trivial on the surface, but they are the building blocks of a stable self. And without a stable self, you cannot take on larger responsibilities because you will crumble under their weight. The fundamental principle is this: you voluntarily carry the heaviest load you can bear because that is what fortifies you. If you neglect small responsibilities, you will be too weak to shoulder larger ones. But if you take ownership of the smallest tasks with care and precision, you cultivate a capacity for far greater things. That's how competence is built. Competence is not a gift, it is the compounded result of countless, consistent acts of responsibility. There's a crucial distinction here. Radical responsibility does not mean perfectionism. It does not mean berating yourself for every flaw. It means standing up and saying, even if this situation is not my fault, its resolution is my obligation. You don't get to choose the tragedies that befall you, illness, betrayal, loss, but you are fully responsible for your reaction. Will you crumble? Will you become resentful, bitter, and aimless? Or will you rise, organize your response, and act in a way that brings order to chaos? When you live like this, something remarkable happens. You begin to see the world not as a place of arbitrary suffering, but as a field of challenge and opportunity. You start to respect yourself. And others, seeing you take responsibility, even when it is painful, will gravitate towards you, not out of pity, but out of admiration. The opposite of radical responsibility is complacency and blame, and that is a slow poison. When you blame others or the world for everything wrong in your life, you give away your agency. You make yourself small and helpless. You outsource your growth to forces you cannot control. And deep down, that erodes your soul because something within you knows it is a lie. You know you are capable of more. You know there are actions you could take to move forward. When you ignore that inner voice, you suffer, but worse, you stagnate. Radical responsibility, by contrast, invites suffering, but of the noble kind. The suffering of responsibility sharpens you. It makes you precise, resilient, and worthy. It builds character that stands unshaken in adversity. It does not guarantee success, but it guarantees meaning. And meaning is what you actually crave far more than comfort. So how do you start? Audit your life rigorously. Where are you avoiding responsibility? Where are you blaming others when you should be acting? Identify it, accept it, and start correcting it today in the smallest ways possible. Clean your room. Honor your word. Fix what you broke. Acknowledge when you're wrong. Offer to help even when it inconveniences you. It will not be easy. Nothing meaningful is. But it will transform you. Slowly, incrementally, you will become someone who does not ask, "Who will fix this?" but rather declares, "Son, I will fix this." And in that moment, you will understand what it means to truly stand upright with your shoulders back, facing life squarely on your own terms. Pursue competence over compliance if you are navigating the world with the strategy of compliance, saying what is expected, doing only what is asked, waiting for approval before you act. You are positioning yourself precariously. You are betting that the path to success, admiration, and fulfillment is through obedience and agreement. And while compliance may bring short-term ease and superficial approval, it will never earn you enduring respect, nor will it make you formidable. What does? Competence. Competence is not simply the ability to complete tasks or achieve outcomes. It is the deep integration of knowledge, skill, and character, honed through deliberate effort and disciplined practice. Competence signals that you can be relied upon, not because you conform, but because you can do the thing that others cannot or will not. And that makes you valuable in a way compliance never will. Let's make the distinction clear. Compliance is externally driven. It is reactive. It is the behavior of someone who is waiting to be told what to do, hoping that if they just follow the rules well enough, if they please the right people sufficiently, they will be rewarded. But competence is internally driven. It is proactive. It emerges when you ask, what is the most difficult, worthwhile skill I can master? How can I become someone capable of solving meaningful problems regardless of whether anyone notices or gives me permission? You don't want to be the person who is merely agreeable. Agreeableness, untethered from competence, becomes servility. People don't respect servility. They exploit it. They overlook it. At best, they tolerate it. What they admire is strength under control. Competence coupled with character creates someone who can speak and act independently, because they know they have value that is not contingent on constant external validation. To pursue competence is to willingly endure frustration, difficulty, and repeated failure. You are not just learning to do things. You are training yourself to withstand pressure. The competent individual is calm in the storm because they have practiced under strain. Their confidence is not bluster. It is earned. And that kind of competence is magnetic. People trust those who know what they're doing, especially when situations become complex or chaotic. Moreover, competence liberates you from dependence. If your primary strategy is compliance, you are always tethered to the approval of those above you, employers, peers, even romantic partners. You will find yourself walking on eggshells, tailoring your behavior to what you think they want, rather than acting from a solid foundation of ability and conviction. Competence breaks those chains. When you are genuinely capable, you do not need to beg for opportunities. You create them. You don't need to cling to fragile relationships. You become someone others want to align with, because you add undeniable value. There is also a moral dimension to this. Competence is not just pragmatic, it is ethical. To become competent means you can take care of others. You can bear responsibility for more than just yourself. A competent surgeon can save a life. A competent leader can guide a team through crisis. A competent parent can raise resilient children. If you shirk the pursuit of competence, you are abdicating your potential to contribute meaningfully to the world. Now, there is a reason many people choose compliance over competence. Competence is hard. It requires patience, humility, and relentless effort. You have to be willing to be bad at something long enough to become good. You will have to withstand criticism, correction, and discomfort, but the reward is profound. Competence gives you genuine self-respect. Not the shallow self-esteem of participation trophies, but the deep, quiet confidence of someone who knows they are capable. So how do you pursue competence? Start with what is in front of you. Master your current obligations, no matter how small. Take pride in executing even simple tasks with excellence. Then stretch beyond what is required. Learn skills that make you more useful and adaptable. Seek feedback, not flattery. Expose yourself to challenges that reveal your weaknesses so you can correct them. And, critically, do all of this without the need to constantly advertise it. True competence speaks for itself. Remember this: compliance makes you invisible. Competence makes you indispensable. Aim to be someone whose competence is so evident, so reliable, that others naturally defer to your expertise, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it through discipline, voluntary suffering, in the service of mastery. Don't abdicate risk. There is an uncomfortable truth that we must face squarely. Risk is not optional. You are always engaging with risk, whether consciously or not. The only real question is whether you are taking responsibility for the risk yourself, or whether you are trying, consciously or unconsciously, to hand that risk off to someone else. And when you abdicate risk, when you subtly or overtly ask others to bear it on your behalf, you undermine both your competence and your character. Let's be precise here. What does it mean to abdicate risk? It happens every time you avoid making a decision because you're afraid of the consequences and instead defer to someone else's judgment. It happens when you hold back from acting on your convictions and instead seek reassurance, permission, or approval, so that if things go wrong, you can say, well, I was just following what they said. It happens when you hesitate, procrastinate, or delegate upward decisions that are rightly yours to make, because you do not want to shoulder the burden of potential failure. It's an alluring strategy in the short term. Abdicating risk feels safe. If you don't make the decision, you can't be blamed if it fails. If you don't take the shot, you can't miss. If you defer to someone else, you get to hide behind their authority or their confidence. And culturally, many environments reinforce this tendency. Bureaucracies thrive on diffused responsibility. Groupthink encourages consensus over conviction. But make no mistake, every time you abdicate risk, you erode your own sovereignty. Risk is inseparable from growth. If you avoid risk, you avoid competence, you avoid mastery, you avoid meaning. Every significant advancement in your life, whether in your career, your relationships, your skills, or your character, will come on the far side of risk. You must be willing to say, what if this fails? I accept the consequences, because I believe acting is better than stagnating. That's how leaders are forged. That's how respect is earned. People do not admire those who evade risk. They admire those who voluntarily shoulder it, especially when they don't have to. Consider this practically. Let's say you are in a professional environment and you have an idea that could improve a process, but you're afraid it might not work. You hesitate. You think, "Tranche, maybe I'll wait until someone else brings it up. Or maybe I'll quietly suggest it to my boss and let them take the credit and the risk." That is abdication. You are outsourcing both the risk and, as a direct consequence, the reward. Had you stood up and said, "Here's what I propose, and I'm willing to take responsibility for implementing it," you would not only have advanced your skills, you would have signaled strength, initiative, and leadership. This principle applies just as much in your personal life. How often do people hesitate to express their genuine feelings, intentions, or standards in relationships because they fear rejection? So instead of stating clearly what they want or believe, they conform, appease, and defer, hoping that by minimizing risk, they will maintain harmony. But harmony built on the avoidance of risk is fragile and false. Relationships of any kind only deepen when both parties are willing to risk vulnerability, honesty, and principled disagreement. Now, crucially, taking responsibility for risk does not mean recklessness. It is not bravado or impulsivity. It is measured, deliberate, and conscious engagement with uncertainty. It means calculating the risk as best you can, making an informed decision, and accepting the possibility of failure, not with resignation, but with resolve. If it goes wrong, you learn, adjust, and carry on. That process itself is how you become anti-fragile, someone who grows stronger under pressure rather than crumbling. You must make peace with this fact. There is no path that guarantees safety. Not acting is itself a risk. The risk of stagnation, the risk of regret, the risk of watching life pass you by as others advance. Once you see that clearly, the question becomes, shouldn't that risk is unavoidable, will I own it or will I flee from it? Own it. Own it. Make the decision you know is right, even if it scares you. Take action where others hesitate. Accept the consequences without bitterness. And over time, you will find that what once terrified you becomes manageable, and what was once manageable becomes mastery. You will become someone others look to, not because you avoided failure, but because you faced it squarely and carried on. Remember this, the burden of risk is also the gateway to meaning and significance. The person who bears risk willingly, competently, and with integrity is the person who rises. Don't abdicate risk. Carry it voluntarily and watch how it transforms you. Clarify your aims. If you don't know where you're going, you will drift. That is not metaphor. It is psychological and existential reality. Human beings are teleological creatures. We orient ourselves toward aims. We are map makers and path followers by nature. The sharper and more precise the aim, the clearer the map and the straighter the path. Without a clear aim, you are like a ship without a rudder, subject to the winds and currents of circumstance and the whims of others' expectations. Therefore, clarifying your aims is not optional if you wish to live a life of meaning, competence, and sovereignty. An aim is a target, and a target organizes your perception, action, and effort. When you specify precisely what you want, you begin to filter the chaotic information around you according to relevance. Suddenly, what was previously invisible becomes visible. Opportunities that align with your aim stand out. Distractions that do not serve your goal become easier to ignore. Attention follows aim, and attention is the currency of competence and growth. But most people are vague about their aims. They say things like, I want to be successful, I want to be happy, I want to make an impact. These are not aims, they are abstractions. They are too ill-defined to guide action. If your aim is so broad that it does not tell you what to do tomorrow at 9 a.m., it is not yet useful. A real aim is specific, concrete, and measurable. It says, son, I will complete this project by this date. I will improve this skill to this level. I will have this conversation with this person by the end of the week. Furthermore, a clear aim is aligned with your values, not merely societal expectations or fleeting trends. You must interrogate yourself deeply. What do I actually care about? What would make the suffering and discipline of life worthwhile for me? What am I willing to endure hardship to achieve? Clarity comes from this inner excavation. Without it, you risk adopting aims that belong to others, aims inherited from parents, peers, media, or institutions, and you will find yourself chasing goals that leave you hollow even if achieved. Now, clarity does not mean rigidity. Life is dynamic. Circumstances change. You will learn, grow, and encounter unforeseen challenges. A clear aim is adjustable as new information emerges, but it is not fluid in the sense of constantly dissolving into ambiguity. You hold your aim firmly, but revise it intelligently. Like a skilled navigator, you course correct as needed while still knowing the ultimate destination. Importantly, clarifying your aim forces you to confront reality. You must measure your current position accurately. You cannot set a meaningful aim unless you are brutally honest about where you are starting from. This is difficult. It requires humility. You may have to admit incompetence, ignorance, or weakness. But that confrontation is precisely what prevents self-deception. And self-deception is fatal to growth. Better to know unpleasant truths than to be lulled by comforting illusions. Once you clarify your aim, action becomes simpler. Not easier, but simpler. You know what to say yes to. You know what to decline. You know what skill sets to cultivate. Your time, energy, and focus are not scattered, they are concentrated. And concentrated effort is exponentially more effective than scattered motion. A clarified aim also stabilizes you psychologically. People plagued by anxiety and uncertainty are often aimless. They float from distraction to distraction, overwhelmed by possibilities and paralyzed by indecision. A clear aim cuts through that fog. It anchors you. It provides a structure within which you can operate confidently, because you know what you are working toward and why. Moreover, a clear aim attracts allies. When others see that you are oriented toward a definite goal and moving toward it steadily, they recognize you as serious and trustworthy. People want to associate with those who have direction. Leadership emerges naturally from clarity. You don't need to demand followers. People voluntarily align with those whose aims are clear and meaningful. So how do you clarify your aim? You sit quietly and think. You write. You articulate your thoughts explicitly. You ask yourself pointed questions and answer them honestly. You test small provisional aims through action and observe how you respond. Do you feel more energized, more purposeful? Or do you feel drained and resentful? That feedback guides refinement. And remember, a clarified aim is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. You revisit it regularly. You sharpen it as you gain experience. You recalibrate as necessary. It is a living contract between you and your highest potential. In the end, clarity of aim is a prerequisite for mastery. If you want to be formidable, respected, and fulfilled, vague intentions will not suffice. You must know what you want, why you want it, and how to pursue it. That is how chaos becomes order, and how wandering becomes purposeful stride. Speak with precision. There is immense power in precise speech. When you speak precisely, you crystallize thought. You draw clear boundaries around chaos and articulate reality so that you and others can act effectively within it. Conversely, vague, sloppy, or evasive speech weakens you. It muddies your perception, confuses your intentions, and invites misunderstanding, conflict, and failure. To speak with precision is to exercise sovereignty over your mind and to signal competence to the world. Let us begin with a simple but profound truth. If you cannot articulate something clearly, you do not understand it. The act of putting an idea into exact words forces you to confront its structure. You must identify its assumptions, delineate its components, and distinguish it from similar but different ideas. If your language is vague, full of hedging, fillers, euphemisms, and abstractions, it is almost certain that your thinking is equally vague. You are not in command of your concepts, they are in command of you. Now, why is this dangerous? Because action is based on perception, and perception is shaped by language. If your language is imprecise, your understanding of the situation will be foggy, and your actions will be poorly calibrated. Consider if you describe your dissatisfaction at work as simply don't like my job. That's too broad to be actionable. Is the problem the tasks themselves, the management style, the lack of advancement, the company values? Unless you articulate precisely what is wrong, you cannot effectively change anything. Vague complaints perpetuate helplessness. The first discipline, therefore, is to say exactly what you mean, no more and no less. Avoid euphemism that conceals truth. Avoid exaggeration that distorts reality. Avoid platitudes that pretend to say something but say nothing. Use the correct word, not its blurry cousin. If you're tired, say you're tired, not I'm just feeling kind of off. If you're angry, say you're angry, not I'm just a little frustrated maybe. If you don't know something, say so plainly. Precision earns trust. Speaking precisely is also an ethical obligation. When your words are clear and accurate, you reduce the likelihood of misunderstanding. Miscommunication is often the seed of unnecessary conflict between individuals, within teams, and across cultures. Sloppy speech spreads confusion, false assumptions, and resentment. Precise speech promotes cooperation, alignment, and efficiency. It is, in this sense, a social virtue. Moreover, precise speech signals competence. People instinctively trust those who articulate clearly and confidently. If you can describe a problem sharply, you demonstrate understanding. If you can propose a solution succinctly, you demonstrate mastery. In professional and social contexts alike, clear articulation elevates your credibility. You do not have to speak often, but when you do, speak with such clarity that people listen carefully. Now, speaking precisely does not mean speaking bluntly. Precision is not rudeness. It is not about using harsh or insensitive language. Rather, it is about accuracy and economy, saying exactly what is necessary to convey the truth, no more and no less. A precise statement can be delivered gently or firmly, diplomatically or assertively, depending on context. The key is that it is not evasive. This discipline has a feedback effect on your thinking. The more you practice precise speech, the sharper your thought becomes. You begin to catch yourself when you are about to speak vaguely. You pause, reflect, and clarify internally before articulating externally. Over time, your mind becomes ordered, not because you suppress complexity, but because you name it properly. And what is properly named is more easily managed. So how do you cultivate precise speech? You slow down. You listen carefully, both to others and to your own mind. You edit your words in real time, trimming excess, sharpening meaning. You expand your vocabulary so that you have the right tools to express subtle distinctions. You practice summarizing complex ideas in one or two clear sentences. You welcome correction when your words are inaccurate, and you refine accordingly. Perhaps most importantly, you adopt the posture of intellectual humility. You do not pretend to know more than you do. You resist the temptation to speak for effect rather than for truth. You aim always to illuminate, not to impress. To speak with precision is to step forward with confidence, because you know you are standing on solid conceptual ground. It is to invite clarity into your relationships, your work, and your life. And it is to respect both yourself and your listeners enough to tell the truth, clearly and carefully. Voluntarily confront the unknown. The unknown is not merely out there in the world. It is within you and around you constantly. It is the uncharted territory beyond your current competence, beyond your current relationships, beyond your current self. To live fully and grow deeply, you must make it a principle of life to voluntarily confront the unknown, rather than wait for it to ambush you unprepared. Understand this clearly: the unknown is inevitable. Whether you like it or not, life will present situations, challenges, and environments that exceed your current maps and models. You can pretend the unknown does not exist by confining yourself within familiar routines and predictable circumstances, but that is merely a delaying tactic. Eventually, entropy arrives. Change sweeps in. Chaos pierces your comfortable order. And if you have not trained yourself to face the unknown willingly, it will overwhelm you when it arrives involuntarily. This is why voluntary confrontation matters so profoundly. When you approach the edge of what you know deliberately, when you expose yourself to challenges just beyond your current skill or understanding, you condition yourself. You practice navigating uncertainty. You develop resilience, flexibility, and courage. You expand your competence gradually and sustainably, rather than waiting to be thrown into the deep end against your will. Think of the unknown as a frontier, like the blank spaces on old maps marked Sheerby dragons. The dragons, of course, symbolize danger but also opportunity. Yes, stepping into the unknown risks failure, discomfort, and confusion. But it also offers the possibility of new knowledge, new relationships, new strengths. All genuine growth lies beyond the border of your current order. This principle applies at every scale of life. Intellectually, it means reading books that stretch your mind, entertaining perspectives that challenge your assumptions, learning skills that feel intimidating at first. Socially, it means initiating conversations where rejection is possible, setting boundaries when conflict might follow, expressing feelings that expose vulnerability. Professionally, it means accepting projects that test your competence, seeking feedback that might sting, volunteering for roles that force rapid development. Personally, it means confronting your fears, examining your blind spots, and wrestling with parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. The key is voluntariness. If you approach the unknown as a victim, dragged into it kicking and screaming, you will likely collapse into anxiety, resentment, or paralysis. But if you step toward it willingly, even in small, manageable doses, you transform chaos into potential. You send a powerful signal to yourself and say, "I am not afraid to grow. I can handle more than I thought. I will meet life head on." There is a deep psychological truth here. Approach reduces fear. When you voluntarily move toward what you fear rather than away from it, the uncertainty shrinks and your competence expands. Your brain learns that the territory is navigable. You map it. And with each successful encounter, your confidence grows, not through empty affirmations, but through earned experience. This is also how meaning emerges. Life is not meaningful when everything is predictable, easy, and static. Meaning arises when you are on the edge of your ability, engaged in the process of transforming chaos into order. The unknown, approached voluntarily, invigorates. It gives you a reason to sharpen your skills, deepen your character, and stretch your imagination. It awakens latent capacities you didn't know you had. Now, be wise. Confronting the unknown does not mean plunging recklessly into situations far beyond your ability to manage. That is foolishness, not courage. The goal is incremental exposure. You seek challenges that are just difficult enough to stretch you, but not so overwhelming that they crush you. You expand your sphere of competence systematically, layer by layer over time, and you accept that mistakes, confusion, and discomfort are inherent parts of the process, not signs of failure but necessary markers of growth. If everything you are doing feels smooth and effortless, you are probably not on the edge of the unknown. You are stagnating within familiar ground. Growth feels awkward. That is how you know it is working. Importantly, voluntary confrontation of the unknown builds integrity. It forces you to clarify your principles, refine your communication, and take responsibility. When you step into uncharted territory, you cannot rely solely on scripts and routines. You must think, adapt, and decide authentically in real time. This strengthens your sense of self. In the long run, those who habitually confront the unknown voluntarily become formidable. They are not easily rattled. They are adaptable, resourceful, and confident. They are leaders. Not because they control everything, but because they are unafraid to face uncertainty and act competently within it. So make it a rule, seek the edge, approach the unfamiliar. Train yourself to navigate what you do not yet understand. That is how you forge a life of depth, competence, and meaning. Assume responsibility, radically. There is a fundamental axis upon which your entire life pivots: responsibility. Your growth, your competence, your meaning, your relationships, your achievements. All are proportional to the degree of responsibility you are willing to assume. And the qualifier here is critical, radically. To assume responsibility radically means to take on more responsibility than is strictly required, more than what is convenient, and more than what others might expect of you. It means you make responsibility a voluntary, comprehensive stance toward existence itself. First, we must define responsibility carefully. Responsibility is not blame. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you. Clearly, much of life is shaped by forces beyond your control. But you are responsible for how you respond. You are responsible for your interpretations, your actions, your reactions, and your trajectory forward. The moment you adopt that posture, that what happens next depends primarily on what you do, you reclaim agency. Too many people subtly avoid responsibility. They offload it onto circumstances, systems, other people, luck, or fate. They say things like, well, I can't help it because of X or it's not job to fix that. Or, I'd say DY would succeed if only others would do Y. These may have elements of truth. But the moment you fixate on external limitations, you immobilize yourself internally. You forfeit your power. You reduce yourself to a passive entity buffeted by forces beyond your influence. Radical responsibility rejects that stance. It says, regardless of how unjust, difficult, or chaotic the world is, what can I do about it? That question transforms everything. It pulls your attention away from grievance and toward competence. It orients you away from helplessness and toward creative action. It is the mark of those who rise. Practically, what does radical responsibility look like? It means taking responsibility for your own thoughts and emotions. You do not wait for others to validate you or regulate you. You monitor your internal states, adjust them consciously, and do the work of cultivating discipline, gratitude, and focus. When you feel resentment, envy, fear, or despair, you own it. You ask, why is this arising in me? What false assumptions am I making? What unhelpful patterns am I perpetuating? You take corrective action. It means taking responsibility for your relationships. You do not merely react to how others treat you. You proactively communicate clearly, set boundaries, express appreciation, and repair ruptures when necessary. You ask, how can I make this interaction better, regardless of what they do? That does not mean tolerating abuse or injustice, but it does mean owning your role fully rather than playing the victim. It means taking responsibility for your environment. You keep your space in order even if no one notices. You fix what is broken, clean what is dirty, and improve what is inefficient. You refuse to say, that's not my job. Instead, you see disarray or dysfunction and you act to improve it because you are the kind of person who assumes responsibility, whether or not reward or recognition follows. It means taking responsibility for your trajectory, your health, your career, your skills, your finances. These are yours to steward. No one will care as much as you do. No one owes you perpetual guidance or support. If you need knowledge, you find it. If you lack a skill, you train. If your plan falters, you revise it. You say, if it is to be, it is up to me. At the highest level, radical responsibility means taking responsibility for the state of the world itself, in whatever domain you can influence. You do not sit back and say, society is a mess, someone should fix it. You ask, where can I make things a little better? You take leadership in your community, your workplace, your family, or your nation. Not because you are forced to, but because you choose to shoulder the burden voluntarily. Now, this is not a recipe for martyrdom or burnout. You cannot fix everything. You are finite. But radical responsibility does not mean shouldering all burdens. It means shouldering all that you can consciously and willingly. You calibrate your load wisely, and as you grow stronger, you carry more. There is deep meaning in this stance. Responsibility is what justifies existence. It is what transforms suffering into purpose. It is what earns you respect from yourself and others. People trust and admire those who step up reliably and competently. Opportunities accrue to those who bear responsibility, because the world desperately needs people who will take the lead where others shirk. In the end, radical responsibility makes you formidable. You become someone who others can rely on, and more importantly, someone you can rely on. Your life becomes an upward spiral of competence, integrity, and influence. So decide, I will assume responsibility radically, for myself, for my circumstances, and for my contribution to the world. That is how you rise. Act it out before you feel like it. One of the most corrosive lies modern people unconsciously absorb is this: I must feel motivated before I act. That belief will cripple you. It leaves you at the mercy of fluctuating moods, unreliable emotions, and external conditions. Those who wait until they feel like it before acting will be outpaced and outgrown by those who act regardless of how they feel. If you wish to become formidable, competent, and effective, you must grasp this principle with both hands. Act it out before you feel like it. First, let's understand something crucial about human psychology. Action shapes emotion more than emotion shapes action. The common narrative suggests that you must first cultivate a certain emotional state, confidence, enthusiasm, inspiration, and only then will right action follow. This is backwards. More often, emotions follow behavior. If you want to feel confident, act confidently before the feeling is fully present. If you want to feel disciplined, behave in a disciplined manner even when you feel lazy. If you want to feel courageous, perform the courageous action despite fear. Feeling will catch up. Why? Because your nervous system takes cues from your actions to infer what kind of situation you are in. If you consistently act with purpose and clarity, your brain learns, and I am the kind of person who moves forward competently. Therefore, confidence is appropriate. But if you sit still, procrastinate, ruminate, or avoid, your brain concludes the opposite. I am paralyzed. Therefore, anxiety and helplessness are appropriate. Action trains perception. This principle is foundational to building discipline. Discipline does not mean waiting for motivation. Discipline means deciding what must be done and doing it whether you want to or not. Those who act only when inspired are like fair-weather sailors, functional when conditions are perfect, but useless when the winds shift. The disciplined person is like a seasoned navigator, steady and competent in all conditions, because action is not dependent on mood. Consider this carefully. What you repeatedly do, you become. Every time you override your transient emotional resistance and act anyway, you are literally reshaping your brain. You strengthen neural pathways associated with initiative, persistence, and follow-through. You cultivate a deep embodied identity of someone who can trust themselves to execute, even when it is difficult, even when you do not feel like it. This is what builds unshakable confidence, not empty affirmations, but a long track record of self-directed action. Moreover, acting before you feel like it reduces suffering over time. Procrastination, avoidance, and delay compound discomfort. When you put off the difficult conversation, the workout, the project, or the decision, you carry a low-grade background anxiety that drains energy and corrodes self-respect. Action relieves that burden. Even small steps forward shrink the task psychologically and restore a sense of agency. Now, there is a subtlety here. Acting before you feel like it does not mean suppressing emotion or pretending to be robotic. You acknowledge your resistance honestly. Yes, I feel tired, unmotivated, or afraid right now. But you follow that acknowledgement with a decision. Nevertheless, I will act. You do not wait to feel ready. You make yourself ready through movement. Practically, how do you apply this? You define small, concrete actions that can be executed regardless of mood. You don't need to complete the entire project in one burst. You need to start. If you can't write the whole report, write one paragraph. If you can't do the full workout, commit to 5 minutes. If you can't have the full difficult conversation, send the first message. Momentum is everything. Small actions build it rapidly. You also create rituals and systems that lower friction. If you wait to decide in the moment whether to act, you invite negotiation with your weaker impulses. Predefine your actions. For example, if your alarm rings at 6 a.m. and you have already decided that no matter how you feel, you will get up and start your routine, the debate is bypassed. Systems liberate you from relying on motivation, and importantly, you reward and reinforce the act of action itself. You don't just measure success by outcome, you celebrate the fact that you acted despite resistance. This reinforces your identity as someone who moves forward no matter what. Ultimately, acting before you feel like it is a form of self-respect. It says, I will not be enslaved by transient emotions. I will not be ruled by lethargy, fear, or doubt. I will do what is necessary because I have chosen the kind of person I want to be. That is how you forge character. In the long run, those who act consistently, regardless of mood, accumulate more skill, more competence, more confidence, and more freedom than those who wait. They surpass the hesitant, the wavering, and the excuse makers. Life rewards those who act. So decide what is necessary. Move forward whether you feel like it or not. Let feeling catch up to action. That is how you win. Stop waiting for permission. There is a quiet tragedy that plays out in the lives of far too many people. They wait. They wait for the green light, for validation, for external approval, for someone to tell them they are allowed to act. They postpone their ambitions, their contributions, their growth, all because they believe they must be granted permission before they move. This is false, this is paralyzing, and this is unnecessary. If you wish to become competent, confident, and effective, you must adopt this principle with full clarity. Stop waiting for permission. First, let's understand where this habit originates. Most people are trained from childhood to follow explicit instructions. From parents, teachers, employers, and systems, the message is clear. Wait until you are told what to do. Compliance is rewarded. Initiative is often punished if it strays from established protocols. Over time, people internalize this pattern. They learn to look outward for cues about when it is acceptable to act, speak, or create. By adulthood, this conditioning runs deep. It feels safer to remain in the role of the obedient follower, waiting for clear authority to endorse their actions. It absolves them of risk. It shields them from responsibility. After all, if you only do what you are explicitly told, then you cannot be blamed if things go wrong. You were just following orders. But here's the problem. No one is coming to give you permission to live fully. No one is going to hand you a signed certificate that says, now you are officially authorized to pursue your purpose, to speak your truth, to build your vision. If you wait for that, you will wait forever. The people who rise, the people who lead, the people who make a difference, they all realized at some point that permission must be self-issued. It does not mean acting recklessly or arrogantly. It does not mean disregarding wisdom, ignoring feedback, or refusing collaboration. It means recognizing that you do not need to be told you are worthy before you contribute. You do not need to be appointed by some higher authority before you take initiative. You are an adult. You have agency. You can decide. Practically, what does stopping the wait for permission look like? It means speaking when you have something valuable to say, even if you worry about offending or being dismissed. You do not sit quietly in meetings, conversations, or debates, waiting for an explicit invitation to share your insight. You contribute. It means starting projects you believe in without needing someone to officially sanction them first. If you see a gap, fill it. If you notice a problem, solve it. If you have an idea, build it. Do not ask endlessly, "'Tis it okay if I?" Assume it is, until proven otherwise. It means taking responsibility for your own growth. You do not wait for your employer to offer training, for your mentor to assign you a task, or for your peers to encourage you. You self-educate, you experiment. You develop skills on your own initiative. It means advancing your relationships. You don't wait endlessly for the other person to make the first move, whether that's initiating a conversation, apologizing, deepening a connection, or setting a boundary. You take ownership of interaction. You say, Seda and I will lead here. The core of this principle is this: you recognize that you are already authorized to shape your life. The moment you understand this, your world changes. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop hoping someone will notice your potential and crown you. You crown yourself by acting. Now, does this mean you will never face resistance? No. Some people, institutions, and systems will push back against your initiative. Fine. Let them. You can adjust course. You can negotiate. But the default posture is action, not waiting. There is deep power here. Those who stop waiting for permission radiate competence and confidence. They do not need to posture or boast. Their actions speak. Opportunities gravitate toward them because people are drawn to those who move decisively. And here is an even deeper truth. The world improves when individuals stop waiting. Many of the problems that persist do so because too many capable people hesitate. They see what could be better in their workplace, in their communities, in their families, but they hesitate. They ask, am I allowed? The answer is yes, if you will step up and take the risk. When you stop waiting for permission, you inspire others to do the same. your courage becomes contagious. Your initiative opens paths not just for you, but for those around you. So decide, I will no longer wait to be told I am allowed to act. If something is worth doing, I will do it. If something is worth saying, I will say it. If something is worth building, I will build it. That is how you reclaim power. Orient yourself toward the highest possible aim. A life without a central aim drifts. It fragments. It scatters energy, attention, and potential across 1,000 shallow distractions. And this scattering, this dissipation, is not neutral. It is corrosive. Without a guiding purpose, chaos creeps in. You fall prey to trivialities, meaningless suffering, and a pervasive sense of emptiness. If you want to stabilize yourself, psychologically, emotionally, practically, you must orient yourself toward the highest possible aim. This is not just poetic language, it is precise. Orient means to align your thoughts, actions, and habits in a coherent direction. Highest means not just what is immediately gratifying or expedient, but what is enduringly meaningful, noble, and worthy. Possible acknowledges your current limitations while stretching you toward your potential. And an aim, that is the target, the vision, the overarching goal that structures your life. Let's start with a blunt observation. You are always aiming at something, whether consciously or unconsciously. Your behavior is teleological, goal-directed, even if the goals are trivial. Scrolling social media, binge-watching, gossiping, numbing out, these are micro-aims. They occupy you, but they do not elevate you. Worse, they anesthetize you to the deeper dissatisfaction gnawing at the edges of your awareness. If you do not choose your aim deliberately, your nervous system and environment will choose for you, and they will default to the path of least resistance, of shallow dopamine hits, of short-term escape. This is a recipe for regret. So, the first step is to recognize that you must choose consciously, but not just any aim, the highest possible aim. What does that mean? It means identifying a purpose that integrates multiple layers of meaning. It is not merely personal gain. It is not purely hedonistic pleasure. It is a vision that harmonizes your talents, your values, and your contribution to something greater than yourself. It stretches you upward. It demands growth. It benefits others. And crucially, it infuses your life with a sense of significance. Why does this matter so much? Because life is suffering. That is an unavoidable fact. You will encounter pain, failure, betrayal, illness, and death. No ideology or lifestyle will exempt you. The question is not whether you will suffer. The question is whether your suffering will be worthwhile. A noble aim makes suffering bearable. It transforms hardship into sacrifice, and sacrifice freely chosen is what gives life weight and meaning. Practically, how do you orient toward the highest possible aim? First, articulate a vision that compels you. You don't need perfect clarity on day one, but you need a direction. Ask yourself, Wilson, if I could become the most competent, courageous, and generous version of myself, what would I be doing? What would I be building? Who would I be serving? Let your imagination stretch upward. Second, break that high aim into concrete, actionable goals. A lofty vision without execution remains a fantasy. Define what skills you need to develop, what habits you must cultivate, what relationships you must strengthen. Ground the vision in daily practice. Third, align your environment to support that aim. Surround yourself with people, systems, and routines that reinforce your direction. Cut out what is corrosive, distracting, or counterproductive, even if it is socially expected or comfortable. Fourth, review and renew your aim regularly. Life circumstances shift. You grow,